Hey, all right, welcome back. Let's get rolling. All right, let's do this. Let's start with this. All right, as we learned in the beginning, there was a point, a single point on a plane. That was it. I'll zoom in. Then that point joined another point and became a line. All last week we talked about lines, lines, what all sorts of lines, right? Lines. Now we're going to take that line and we're going to finish it. And we're going to make a shape. Nothing can escape. It's stuck in there. There's no hole. You know, like we talked about earlier, if I draw this to this to this to this, that's still a line. There's room for something to escape. But once you close it out, this becomes a shape. Nothing can get out. That's the difference. A shape is also known as a plane, which you will hear about in your book reading. The reason I use shape over plane is I feel like plane, a lot of times people like think about like more of like a 3D effect, like a shape rather than like, you know, something going back into the distance rather than just like a simple organic shape. So we are on shapes today. And shapes just being what? Another element we can use when we design. Let's dig into it. All right. Here's a little thing. All right. Again, kind of similar to what we ran into with the line is it's similar. It's like the same definitions, sort of. You know, they can be organic, but the main one I just said, it's a flat enclosed area with 2 dimensions. And so that's why I don't use it like using plane, as I feel like sometimes plane infers a 3rd dimension. And right now we're keeping it with flat. And then characteristics, which, you know, runs into that types and shapes. Anything is possible. You know, shapes can vary in size, proportion, orientation, complexity, and for a lot of work, and this is kind of important, and it's really cool. And you'll know this when you get into Illustrator. Is there the basic building blocks to be used to create visual elements? And when you start to design or you make things in Illustrator, even Illustrator in that book we use, which is great, starts to say you start to build things by making shapes. You know, and there's tons of like tutorials out there, like how to make a mouse, and it's like 3 circles and 2 triangles, and you're like, oh, they're talking in shapes. Shapes are used to build other things. So we need to, you know, go into that shape part. But it's very, you know, like that's what it is. And yeah, I use it to this day. When I'm building stuff in Illustrator, I start with shapes. When I'm sketching things out and I bring it into Illustrator, I'm sketching shapes. And I think that's sometimes too where a student, and I'm going to knock something out, like right out of your heads right away too when using shapes, is the shapes need to have an outline around them, and they don't. I think I'm going to jump into that now because I'm going to make a note of it. No outline. Sorry. I get so excited, I don't want to forget stuff, and then so I wrote myself a note. All right. So, you know, we're talking about, so it's the building blocks. Like I said, you use it, and when I draw, I use it, and you start drawing more in shapes than line, and you don't realize it, and it changes the way you move. The more elevated you get in your education here. Types of shapes that geometric shapes are precise, perfect little shapes. They're geometric, and you can have organic. It could be whatever. A puddle of water is a shape. You know what I mean? Role and composition, structure and form. They help define areas. You can have pictures within shapes. You can use shapes as a repeating element. They can be recognizable shapes. They can be, like shadow, like the shape is a representation of something without showing that something. It's crazy what you can do with shapes. There's the negative space around the shape. This gets a little bit heady, is that you can represent something with the shapes around the object, and it's called negative space. The panda. Oh, I'm trying to think of the panda logo. No, that's not a good one. There's some really good logos out there. Let me just do, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Again, so horse wine. There's like this horse, this one, dark horse wine. So how like the horses have that like thing on the front of their heads, it's always drawn in. Well, this dark horse winery was like, oh, we'll do like a geometric horse shape, and then that shape will be a wine glass. Like, how fitting, like, boom, there it is. That's the negative space. So it's a shape within a shape, both representing two different things. And it's just shapes. It's crazy the amount of stuff we can do with that. All right. Hierarchy and emphasis. Shapes can be used to like tell us where to go on the page. Big, bold block at the top with text in it. My eye's going to go to that big, bold, blocky area with text on top of it. The shape is telling me to go there. It's emphasizing. Or the shape could be what we call an arrow, which is a rectangle and a triangle put together, two shapes, to guide the eye someplace else. And that's, the geometric arrow. It could be an organic arrow, but it's a shape. So you have to start thinking like line and shape, they're two different things, and let's not mix them up together. And that's what my note is about, like not mixing up line and shape. Line doesn't always have to be with the shape. Let the shape live on its own. And you'll see that in my examples, and you'll see that in 90% of any graphic design thing you look at. Line and shape live different lives. And there's a reason for that. And it's not even a reason. It just looks better. And I'll show you in my examples. Symbolism, different shapes carry different symbolic meaning. For example, circle is unity, We draw that circle. Two teardrops facing each other is like the infinity. Triangle, balance or tension. You just draw one shape. Yellow triangle. You should think yield. Like it just ingrained in our brains. If you drive, like if I just drew a yellow triangle, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's like a yield sign. Watch out. Like it's just a shape, but we build our lives around this yellow shape. They can evoke emotion and mood, sharp angular shapes. Man, ouch, ouch, ouch. Like that's what a little bit with that line experimentation that we did is how do you make these things speak? Sharp lines, teeth, ow, hurt, broken glass. That's what it represents. But it's just shapes. Or while soft, a cloud. What do we draw? How do we draw clouds? Oh, just big, pillowy shapes. And that's a cloud. And it's just soft curves. And again, it's just a shape. But in our minds, we start to define it as something that it's not. Again, that's the beauty of this. Like, what we do in graphic design is how that happens. So, and then, shapes are used to make logos and layouts and everything. Shapes are the base. And then balance and harmony. you use shapes to help create the balance and harmony within a composition to make sure everything's where it needs to be. The eye needs to go where it needs to go. Awesome stuff. All right, let's check out our examples. This poster, all shapes, literally, because I will defend this too, that this bolder font, letters are shapes. We just, again, put a definition on like what an H is defined as, and then in our minds that becomes an H. This entire poster is only shapes. We have a red shape on the outside, and each one of these elements is a shape. There's not a single line. Okay, these two dashes here, fine. But even in between the shape, nobody drew a line, but it's implied, right? And then the shape of the shape implies something else. So because of the shape of it, it does become that shape turns into a particular plane. And then the way those planes are arranged and made smaller, we have this idea of like, he's running up the iconic steps in Philadelphia. He's about to do, and that's his shadow. And it's foreshadowing him doing his arms up because he ran up. I don't know, the last time I saw Rocky was a long time ago. If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You don't even have to know the movie. It's kind of this weird iconic thing. But again, one poster, all shapes, not a single line. Yet it shows illustration, emotion. It tells a story about something that happens in this movie. And again, even the text is shapes. We can use shape to create interest in a piece. These triangles, broken up triangles, it's a little bit to me like broken glass, like one's layered on top of another. It's like shifted off, and each one is shifted off a little bit. There's a little shift here, and then her face is shifted off. So it's almost like broken glass. But they use these triangles, and they built this awesome like pattern out of the triangles. And looking up here, we have two indicators that you may not know about that are built in that are telling us what to do in the design. So in our Western world, we read top to bottom, left to right. I'm coming in from the top and I'm seeing these figures. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I get to this red triangle, and this red triangle is pointing me down to the title, right? It's purposely doing this. But then if I happen to stray back, this triangle is taking us down into the article. So we have, these triangles, which could be thought of as arrows, directing the viewer subconsciously of where to go and how to interact with the piece. So these shapes within, photos, within shapes, are evoking much more than just like, it's just a bunch of triangles. Like, this is stuff that designers think about, and you will start to think about, and you'll hide hidden messages and images, and like this starts to come into play, and the amount of things that you can kind of like really get, I don't want to hide from people, but there's messages in design that you don't know about. I mean, I'm going through these and showing you all of them. Start to look at that. Like, how does that make me feel? How is the reaction? What is it doing? And how is it making me read on the page? And again, shapes, and I'm going to really, because I'm coming back to that. Shapes, no lines. Shapes, no lines. These are gaps in between the shapes. There's no lines being used, right? Number one, no lines. This is just a cool one. I've never seen this, but I've always just liked this poster design-wise. I like these weird towering letters. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a piano, or whatever. I've never seen Breathless. I just like, there's so many like kind of cool elements, but it's all based on these like tall shapes with the letters in them. I actually like this so much I emulated a Christmas card based off of this. But the shapes, like they're like these little towers. And then we have one gold one that sticks out. Why is this one important? And why is this guy dancing on it? And then it's perfectly aligned with this guy. You know, like there's so many things just going on. And again, all shape, not a single line is present. Love it. Binoculars. I would say, and I always use old examples because I think today's examples aren't as intriguing, or it's harder to find intriguing examples from this day and age where everything just, you know, this micron binoculars, I think if it was done today, what would we have? A beauty shot of a pair of binoculars and some type, you know, like these binoculars do this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh, boring. Like, great. This is intriguing. This, like, what? This is so crazy. And again, all shape, not a single line, all abstract. But I can tell what's going on. I know what's going on. You know, you have the black outline of the binoculars, that little central piece, the green, you know, like if you look at binoculars, they have that coating that looks green with that yellow hand coming up from the bottom, up to the top. They're adjusting them. Focus, you know, cute little pair of red lips in there, but barely visible on the magenta. And the colors are working great. And big, bold type. Again, super rad, bold type, reads so well. All shape. I love this poster. You know, like it's so much more intriguing to me than what we would do today, which would be, you know, a mountain scene with some binoculars on a wet rock, and, you know, blah, and a duck in the background. Like, this is way better than that. And finally, I don't know if you guys know this classic Dylan poster made by Milton Glaser and Pushpin Studios. You'll learn more about Pushpin in the future. In art history. Again, shapes. Dylan, Bob Dylan, that is, kind of has an iconic profile of his face. So that's used in this. And it's just a big black shape. The hair, you know, his wild hair, you know, kind of like a wild, just shapes. There is line usage in this one. So I give you that. I believe it works well in this one, and it's done intentionally. So there's intentional line and unintentional line. I'm talking about intentional line here. And that's what makes it like what it is for this piece. And then look at the bottom. I can't scroll anymore. Like it's, so I'm sorry it's down in the bottom corner, but you all have this example. Though Dylan is shapes. Like it's a big bold D, a Y. There's like, they took out even the middle parts. The A is a triangle. It's all shapes, you know? All these designs are like 90% based on shape alone. They use like one element to design the poster, and it can be done. It's great stuff, you know. Ooh, love it. That's my shape lecture. Let's talk about research. Here's the fun part. These lectures will get shorter each week because I don't have to talk about the research part anymore. Again, and most people, I haven't seen them all because they're due today at midnight. I've been doing an excellent job. And I'm looking, again, for perfection in these. And here's a fun one where I did this one. I think I was thinking color forms. I don't know if you guys know what color forms are. I think I had heard an article and it made me think of this pattern. But I have my album cover, my book cover, my poster, everything's spaced out. All my text is on the same plane. If I drew a line, it'd be perfectly across. What's that? Example 2. So if you want to, like, quote unquote, make it easier on yourself, then you do the 3-pager. Again, this one, if I drew a line down the middle, they all line up with each other from page to page to page. Yeah, they do. This one may be just a little left. But so when you read them down, they're all together. And then, like, that's some of the stuff that we're starting to teach you with. This is the layout portion of the program. So again, when you're going to use Google Slides, and the one person needs to know this isn't here. So we got Google Slides. And again, some people are finding some great new presentations. Thank you. Click around. I think I was asked about this again, so I'm gonna just go over it. Oh, because I've seen this. I see this in a different project. So I'm gonna place my image, upload from the computer. I have my elements. So I'm gonna put in. I just put in the book. This book. It's something old. Whatever. I'm gonna do the movie one. When they come in, remember, they come in at the size that they're supposed to be and the proportion. And at no point am I going to take it from the side and make it fit into my design. Because what did I do? I squished the image. I didn't design behind Emily Lyons to look like that. I'm pissed. Like if I was a designer of that. I was like, why'd you ruin my design? Why did you squish it? Why do I look awful? Why does it look, bad? Always from the corner and always in proportion. And in this program, thank goodness, it always stays in proportion, always from the corner. Now, I'm going to line that up. See what I did? Red line, red line. I'm going to add a new one. It's a blank document. Delete, delete. And actually, this comes in better. I should do it with text. I'm going to do it with text. If I copy this, and I go to here, and I paste it, it's pasting it in the exact same spot. So use that to your advantage when designing your little slides. So rad that it does that for you. Like, because then you can do, like, I'm going to insert my text. And it's going to be like, book. And I'm going to have it on 2 lines. Book cover. And it's going to be so plain and boring, And then, but the other thing I'm going to look at, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to grab here. And I'm not going to line, I want the words to line up with the top of the poster. And then now, when I move it to the left, I'm holding down Shift. And it's going to constrain it, it's called. And now I know the top of the B is actually in line with the top of that. If I drew a line, it would almost be perfect. And then I can take this, because I wrote book cover here. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to paste. And now when I type back in here, I can go movie, poster. And if I go from one to the other, see how nothing jumps around? And all you have to do is copy from one, paste into the other. It's the beauty of using these new programs. And like I said, watch for these things that show up, these lines that show like, oh, I'm perfectly centered on these lines. That means I'm in the center of the page. Your advanced programs now do that too. They actually stole that from the advanced programs, is Illustrator and InDesign. They all do this matching, like, I have 3 of these, I'll do this again. I make this, well, actually, I'm going to make it smaller first. Delete that, go here, do copy paste, and then copy paste and move it over. And now I'm going to make sure all these are on the same line, right? I saw the red. And now if I move this back and forth, those two little blue lines show up at the bottom, perfectly spaced, unless I jar them off. And it did it for me. Now I'm going to grab all three. Well, I don't want that movie poster. I'm going to grab all three and I'm going to do the same thing. Boom, perfectly spaced. You saw the red and the red show up. These are now perfectly spaced from each other and perfectly spaced in the middle of the full frame. And I didn't have to even like think about it. I just let the computer do it. I can move it back out and be like, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Done. Perfect. So again, use what's there to help you do something. Movie poster. I'm going to change this. I'm going to do the corner. I'm going to go to one line. I got to pull this out and I'm going to pull it. Boom. It locks on. Red line. I pulled it. Red line. Perfect. I'm going to pull this one. Boom. Red line. Perfect. I'm going to pull this down. And then I want this centered. You know, I always say, make sure it's centered. And you go to, where the fuck is it on this one? Oh, paragraph. Dual format. Align and indent. Format. Center. Now it's perfectly centered. Now I can just take this and I'm just gonna, can I do it? Oh, okay, I can't. Copy paste. I can get it to lock in the other one because I messed that up. I'm gonna grab this one, get it to line up, and look, and again, draws that line across, shows me that's where that center point is gonna be, and then I would type in on this one, you know, something new. What are the other book covers? And it's all aligned. So I'm just, you know, again, you're like, it goes over this a lot. I want these to be perfect, and I want you guys to know how to make perfect design. You know, it's not about, you know, high school or whatever and doing that thing. And we're like, it looks best if an image is over there in the corner for some reason, like hiding out. Like, no, we want them in the middle. We want them all centered. We want them all aligned. And look at all these things popping up to help me get it right. Right there. I moved it away, got it back right in the same spot. So make sure you're doing that. Most people are, but I just want to reiterate some of that, you know, make sure the big one is we're not fitting it in and doing that. No. So again, now you're going to, of course, research shapes. And now let's get to the shape project. We're going to download. And it's going to open in Illustrator. Now, every project I do is set up the exact same way. All of these layers that I want you to start learning and getting used to are all the same. Your artwork here, of course, green light. And sometimes you don't have to change the text box. But again, green means go. You don't need to change them in this one. All you have to do is work on artwork and make sure you turn off my red one. You do not need to turn off the square box. That is a template. The more you learn about Illustrator, the more you're going to find out about how that works and get more used to that. So shapes. And I'm going to go on. I'm going to start doing some drawing. Shapes can be balanced or they can be unbalanced. Here I have two shapes, right? This one, this is sitting comfortably on top of this one. It's what we call balanced. There's no tension, there's nothing. This one, that thing's about to fall off. It's unbalanced. Now, I kind of did this, you know, like unbalance happens in a ton of different ways. I would sort of like you to match balance to unbalanced. I have a square and a triangle, a square and a triangle. Here it is balanced, here it is unbalanced. You could do 1,000 shapes if you want, but it must only be in black and white. And I want, if you have 10 shapes up here, the matching should have the 10 shapes and look balanced. So keep that in mind. Now you can do a ton of different things. And for this project, it does say black and white only. We're not getting the colors yet, only using black shapes. You got to graduate in the color because there's that whole, and actually, what's next week? I think I'm going to save my outline tirade till later because we're just using black shapes. So there's not even, you can't even get a hint of line in there. Now, though, what I will say, and to make sure nobody does it, oh, because this is set, like mine is already set on this and it's wrong. But I know I know to look. Here, right here, the fill and stroke. The front one is fill. The back one on this is stroke. For these assignments, we want that stroke to have a red line through it. We don't want that. We don't want anything showing up. Joel, what does that mean? Let's draw a shape because all our shapes are up here. So in Illustrator, all your shapes are underneath that rectangle tool. There's a rectangle, there's an ellipse, there's a polygon, there's a star tool. If I draw, right now it's just set on white. It made a white shape. I don't want that. You can go to Properties, which is right next to Layers, go to Fill, and hit black. Now, what I don't want, and a lot of people will keep that stroke will be turned on. We don't want that. I want to get you in the habit that when you draw with shapes, you want no stroke. What does that mean? So if I do this, that's the stroke. And then if I add a color to it, because everybody does this, so I am going to my tirade. But you know, we don't need a black outline around the red square because the color's not going to fall out of it. We don't need that border holding it in. So I want you to also get in the habit from here on out, whenever you make a shape in any project, anywhere, you turn that off and just let it be a solid color on its own. So always make sure that you are working with the shape, even on this one, even if it's black. You're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's got a black stroke. It will matter in the future when I start saying like, turn that off already. I told you in the class, don't use that. So that's that shape part. Okay, shapes, more shapes and shapes. Rectangle tool. Any way, click and drag. This is freehand click and dragging. If I hold down Shift, perfect squares. You can take those and you can copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste and make like 100 of the exact same size square. So play around with that. Like don't jump in, play around. Ellipse tool, freehand, little tiny circle. Or if I hold down Shift, perfect circles. And again, I can grab them and copy and paste. There's another one, copy and paste. There's another one, all over. Like, so play around with that as well. I hold that down. And how do I get to those? I hold down, click and hold, not just tap, click and hold. Polygon tool. There's a couple ways around this. I can like pull, and then if I hit my up and down arrow, though I don't like it because it cycles through like 6, you have to be really quick. Your up and down arrow will make more shapes. Or if I double click, how many sides do you want? I want 3 sides. 3, enter, perfect. Double click. I want 5 sides. Done. So once I'm on that polygon tool, you can, either make it yourself, you can hit up and down, Oh, and there's a new feature then too. It's if you're on the shape, you can double. I don't do it. There's a little thing. It says 5 sides, plus or minus. There's a way to. Oh, if you drag it, it's very hard to see. Okay, I'm going to change the color so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and I'm going to zoom in. Orange should that show up a little bit better. All right, so I'm on my shape, and if I go here to that little diamond, it says 5 sides, but if I push up, it goes less. If I pull down, it adds more. It's something brand new they added to Illustrator. It's pretty cool. I can't say I ever really use it, but again, it's something to play with when you're making your shapes. And then the final one is the star tool. Very similar, almost exactly the same. You can adjust inner and outer, and you should be able to adjust, you know, there's that blue slider that adds more, you know, grab on certain parts and start messing around. Like part of this is like, what can you do to it? Here I rounded them just by grabbing different parts and pulling and changing the inner and outer of that to get it exactly what I want. It's a lot of fun. So see everything that happens when you create a shape. And in these amazing programs, they have them all like that blue thing there. If there's a point there, like what happens when I go over it? Oh, what happens if I click on it and drag it? Most things are click and drag. It's just not click on. Play around, have some fun. You know, try different things. Oh, this one will round the insides. Boom. That's pretty rad. Looks like a sprocket. So that's playing around with the shapes. Play around, have some fun. Back to balance and unbalance. Now there's a billion things we can do. And like I said with the line project, let's play around. You know, what is balance? What is unbalance? The definition, and we're going to come into it when we get into principles of the design too, is like, so if I have my square, balance could simply be 2 squares next to each other. Perfectly spaced, perfectly balanced on that page. And then to create the unbalanced version of that, maybe one's here and like one's here. It's offset. It's not like perfect. You know, that's one way to do it. I do have more fun thinking about like things falling or the tension it creates. You know, you create a diamond shape. You know, again with a triangle. Oh God, what am I doing? You know, you got a diamond and you got a square on top, you know, and then what can you do? Is that balance or unbalanced? You know, like it's balancing on there, but then I have the diamond, but the square is now like on that tip. And like how, like, oh, it looks like it's about to close. Like it changes. It's the same shape, but the way I angled it, the way I just moved it over, creates something brand new out of that. Again, I am drawing with a pen on a tablet to show you the examples. When we are doing our shapes, these will be solid. All right. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see outlined shapes. I want to see solid black shapes. This is just for demonstration purposes only. Think about, you know, balance can come in so many ways, and I want you to experiment, play around, have some fun. I want the top one, you know, again, if you did 2 up here, I want the same 2 down there, and I want you to show how you can mess around and play at the balance. And that's for that project. So have some fun with it. Last but not least in today's roller coaster of assignments is another design practice. InDesign. So you guys are gonna have to tell me about fonts and crud, but it should work. So you're gonna download the zip file. Download. Now this also came up with me. That's not everybody's ever done zip files. Here's a zip file. It's .zip. Generally on a Macintosh, you can double click on it and it will do what is called extract the files. On a PC, you can right click on it and it will, it will say extract. So I don't know why one is so kind of completely different than the other, but that's how you do it. If you open this on a PC and you just double click on it, it will open the folder, but it won't allow you to access it. So what the PC is doing, it's previewing what's inside without actually opening it. So if you're on a PC, right click and go to extract all. I can't show you what that looks like because I don't have a PC, but I use a PC at home. And so I go back and forth and it's common knowledge. So I'm just going to double click on that. And you're going to get a folder called Jessica Walsh. Inside is going to be Jessica Walsh INDD, which is the InDesign file, and the links needed for the file. Again, I hope that the fonts come through. Maybe we'll work on it tomorrow or Thursday. If they didn't, we'll go over this again. It's the exact same thing. I have images all over the place. I have all the parts and pieces you need. And then you're going to go to layers and you're going to see these layers and they're all there. And you're just going to assemble it. This goes there, move things around, get it perfectly assembled. Now there's some weird things. You see what happened there? If I grab at a certain point, I can either move the image, or if I mistakenly grab the center of the image, I actually move, I actually move the image within its frame, and then I need to undo. So this is a little bit more finicky than Illustrator, but you have to start to learn what program does what, how do I get them to line, but all those same things can happen. I'm going to align to that, and I put this one in. Get out of here. So if that's always bugging you, this thing, which drives me nuts, I generally have it turned off, or you can pin it down in a corner. It says pin context. It'll never leave that corner if you always want it up. I hate it that it follows you each time. And then, like, again, when I'm doing things and I'm moving them in, it's locking in to, why didn't you pin? Don't tell me I have to do it each time. Skip to her. And we're just going to, move this, and it wants to lock. And look, it's showing me all those things equally spaced. It's giving me all those. So I know I'm doing it correct and getting it in place. All I want you to do is do this. And then for this one, for Illustrator, it was save as. For InDesign, it's export a PDF. So that's another thing you have to get common knowledge to start getting in your brain is InDesign, I export, Illustrator, I save as to get a PDF. It should be, I don't know, it's simple, but we'll go over this again on Thursday to kind of make sure all of this is jiving and you understand what's going on. Finally, point line plane, that's in the book. It's just read it. Let me know what you think about it. So cool. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, great. I'm here until the Illustrator teacher comes in. I'll be around. I'll be working on stuff. I'm here to answer questions. All right, thanks.